Welcome everyone again to Nerd of the Rings. I am very excited and pleased and honored to be welcoming for, I guess this is the third time on the channel, Sir Richard Taylor. Richard, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hello everyone, lovely to be back chatting to you all, and nice to have Sean on the other side here behind the camera, and great to be catching up.
And we're going to talk a lot about, some of the stuff you guys have been working on, the last few years. I did have a Lord of the Rings question that I don't think I've asked before. Looking back on your time in Middle-earth, and this might be kind of like picking between children, but do you have a certain, prop or a challenge that you guys overcame that you think, wow, that is peak WETA?
I've talked before about my favourite thing that we did in Middle-earth, which was creating Lurtz, Lawrence McCoy's character. I won't wax on about that because I'm sure people can even quote my thoughts on that. So that's definitely the favourite character we created. With respect to the departments, we looked after 5 departments. For those that don't know, we looked after the design of and then the construction of armour, weapons, creatures, miniatures, special makeup effects and prosthetics. I loved all of it, of course. I love prosthetics because you can take an actor and transform them into someone that is entirely different through the additive process of applying prosthetics to people. I love armour and weapons. I love the research that goes into a weapon. I love the fact that the armour fabrication is you get a sense that you're working in an archaic craft that has been around for centuries, and that feels very special. Obviously, you're having to replicate what a craftsperson may have taken months or years to make in a matter of weeks. So you're using modern day manufacturing techniques, but wherever possible, giving it the sense of historical manufacturing so that it feels authentic. And of course, the joy of making miniatures. And I think the miniatures department and the involvement in the miniatures of Lord of the Rings gave us the chance to hit the moment that you're talking about. Our miniatures team was very small, led by John Baster and Mary McLaughlin, 2 highly accomplished New Zealand miniature builders. And I did a lot of my hours working on the miniatures for the films. And a miniature is an amazing combination of crafts, right? First and foremost, in a perfect world, a miniature would almost go past without people realizing that it was a fabricated environment. You're building a miniature because either it doesn't exist in the world, you can't get to that place in the world, or you want to create something at such a monumental sense of scale and wonderment that it would be impossible to build as a full-size set. So miniatures have an amazing magical quality to them. And I probably my greatest lament about the industry that we work in is the almost complete loss of miniatures from the filmmaking process. Blade Runner, when we did the last Blade Runner movie, Denis Villeneuve very kindly wanted to use miniatures that would emulate the sense of the original movie. So we got to do a huge pile of beautiful miniatures for that. And there's a great behind the scenes that was filmed on that. Alex Funke, the incredible DOP miniatures filmer that did the work on Lord of the Rings, shot those miniatures for us as well. And we did some photogrammetry miniatures for Ghost in the Shell, but it's very rare today. Lucy Lawless, who was made famous through her role as Xena in Warrior Princess, the follow-on from the Hercules television series. who we actually met and knew on set before she even became the Xena role, which was amazing. She was just this incredibly friendly individual that would come up and chat to us at the lunch table. She's gone on with a stellar career, of course, and is one of New Zealand's greatest actors and brilliant creatives. And she's just directed her first documentary about a woman called Margaret Moth, which, until this documentary comes out, almost no one in the world and almost no one in New Zealand even knows her story. But she was an extraordinary videographer who put herself into the most extreme war zones in the world, Rwanda, Lebanon, etc. And Lucy had the idea of using miniatures to realise a lot of the ideas within the documentary that she couldn't shoot for real. So that was a lovely opportunity to start, doing miniatures again.
Yeah.
They're monochromatic miniatures, so not our forte, but they've got a wonderful sense of story within the world. So if I shake that down, very long-winded way to answer your question, I think Minas Tirith. I've talked before about how Minas Tirith is the greatest demonstration that we were involved in of Alan Lee's incredible mind.
Yeah.
Because Minas Tirith is, at the end of the day, a wedding cake with a huge wedge through the middle of it, right?
It is, yeah.
And it is an immensely complex piece of architecture that requires a set of interconnecting roads through the buildings of Minas Tirith that allow you to elevate from the gates to the top surface, right? And to where the White Tree of Gondor is. And you may, as a viewer, watch the movie and go, oh, yeah, well, whatever, it's just a road that leads up through. But actually designing that and coming up with a set of buildings that allow that to happen and etc. I don't need to, but you get the point.
Yeah.
So Alan's doing two-dimensional drawings of different parts of it, and we're building as he's drawing. And sorry to repeat myself because some of you have heard this before, but it still fascinates me to this day. He obviously was three-dimensionally mapping his drawings onto this three-dimensional wedding cake structure, that when we finally pulled all those bits together, it just and it literally locked in and perfectly worked as a piece of architecture. And it's almost too complex to explain the moment that John and Mary and I and others were standing there and going, how's this possible? They've got the scattering of sketches around us, some of them falling off large sheets of A1 paper, and but it all came together. So I think Minas Tirith was one of the last miniatures we built. It was incredibly complex to shoot. At one point we actually had to tilt the miniature to get the tracking onto it because we just couldn't get the camera high enough in the studio. But so many of them bring back such fond memories. Helm's Deep was another one, the first miniature that we built, interestingly. The floppy model making that John Baster coined, which saw us using flexible urethanes to produce models very quickly and in large levels. And Mount Doom and the gates to Mount Doom, etc., were all done in that style. It just
Now, you mentioned the brilliant mind of Alan Lee. I actually went on a journey through your mind up in Auckland. That's how it was phrased to me by the folks up at Wētā Workshop Unleashed. They said, we're going to go through Richard's mind, and that was a fun ride, I must say, to go through your mind. So tell us about Unleashed and what brought this about. It's such a cool experience, as we go through, we get the same techniques that we, have come to know and love from Lord of the Rings and the multitude of films and projects that you guys have worked on. But it's so cool because people get to experience it, firsthand and get hands-on with a lot of this stuff.
Good on you. Thank you very much for saying that. And please, if you're in New Zealand, come and visit Unleashed. It's been built for people exactly like the sort of people that are listening to this podcast at the end of the day. I have spent my whole career trying to demystify what we do. There is this very odd aspect of the career that we work in where keep it secret, keep it safe, right?
Yeah.
And there is this odd desire to try and hide from others how it was done. Now, I understand that at a commercial viability level, of course, and it would appear very immature of me to not acknowledge that companies that come up with original and unique ways of doing things would want to protect it to some degree. But the industry that we work in, the practical effects industry, the makeup effects industry, etc., the miniatures industry, has never been like that. There has almost been a completely open source sharing of amazing ideas. And probably the greatest example of that is Dick Smith and Dick Smith's makeup course, where anything at all that he learnt and invented and learnt from others, he shared on with anyone that wanted to know. And I became a student of Dick Smith very early on in my career and ended up having a very warm friendship with him right through to the end of his career. And so this desire to demystify what we do has been very prevalent through my whole career, and sometimes against the thoughtful advice of some of my colleagues and my wife in some cases. But 35 years on, I reflect on that decision, and I don't think it has ever harmed us better than it's benefited, not just us, but those that ring me up, those that want to know how we do it. So at its heart, Unleashed is a desire to open up the doors of Wētā Workshop and give a journey through it that demystifies what we do. And I have a saying that the thing I love to make the most today is other makers, right? I love the fact that there are still people in the world where you can get your endorphins firing by just doing this all day. And there's still people that actually want to make things. They're rare and they're getting rarer, but there are people that still want to make things. And I almost feel that it is beholden on us and companies like us to try and show young people that there is a fulfilling aspect to life that doesn't have to come through the flat surface of an iPad or iPhone, that there is joy to be found and accomplishment to be achieved through the making process. So at its simplest, Wētā Workshop Unleashed is a 1.5 hour walkthrough experience, a guided walkthrough experience that invites you as a guest to come on a tour of a fictitious and fantastical Wētā Workshop that is in the middle of making 3 movies. We're doing the effects for a low-budget horror movie called Fauna that's set in the back blocks of New Zealand and a creature that wants to take back the forest. A high-budget fantasy movie on the scale of a Lord of the Rings, but set around the life of dinosaurs and castles and sieges and a completely alternative history to our Earth. And then a science fiction movie set under the islands in the Hauraki Gulf of Auckland, and takes our protagonists across the waters to South America, and where they discover giant robots and huge UFOs. And in the process of discovering how we do the effects for these movies, you learned how to make yourself. And hopefully we imprint on people the utter joy of making and creating.
Yeah.
Those that go expecting to see Middle Earth will be disappointed, because we chose not to draw from movies that have an IP that we would need to get licenses for.
Right.
Because that is appropriately and respectfully very controlling. And we wanted the entire freedom to just think outside of the box, have no limitations on what we're doing, and dream as big as we wanted to dream. And that's indeed what we did. Now, interestingly, we got Unleashed built in a year, and I made it almost I was still doing a major project in China and still running Wētā Workshop and so on, but I just had this burning ambition to create Unleashed. So it became my almost obsessive project of the year. So I ended up wonderfully getting to build a bunch of the stuff in there, which was really nice, and working with a small team of people here at the workshop. And what's lovely about Unleashed is every single department within because we have 7 different sort of business centers here, and a very broad set of departments. Every department played some part in it, so it's a great collaboration between everyone here. And then the fact that we've been able to hire a bunch of amazing new people who have become the tour guides and the people that manage it, and we've got a WETA cave up there that's not dissimilar to our retail experience in Wellington, and so I'm overjoyed with it. Sadly, we had only just opened it, and of course COVID hit. And we had Tanya and I had to make a very tough decision whether we closed it down and counted our losses, or whether we tried to weather it. And we obviously chose the second one, and which was tough. Our sort of creative partners in it, Sky City, the venue, and they're our landlords, but they have been so much more than landlords. They have been astounding in their the distance they've gone to support us through giving us rent holiday and so on to help us get through COVID. So coming back out of COVID, we're so pleased that we didn't close it down, because the richness that it's bringing to people that visit, and the impact we wanted it to have, it's having, which is really lovely.
That's great. Yeah, I talking with some folks here at the workshop, you run into folks who say, oh yeah, I remember as a kid watching the appendices of Lord of the Rings, and now I'm working at Wētā Workshop. I can just imagine, it's only a matter of time, I imagine, before someone ends up working here at the workshop that says, when I was a kid, I went through Wētā Unleashed, and it just ignited the creativity. We are getting such amazing stories back from parents that are taking their children through.
We knew that there was something that our child wanted to do but hadn't yet found, and Wētā Workshop Unleashed has unlocked that. But interestingly, we've tried to build it for all ages. People in their 80s are going through, and people in their toddlers are going through.
Oh, I had plenty of fun modeling with the modeling clay while I was in there.
Well, some people haven't sculpted anything since they were in primary school, right? Since they were little kiddies. So we're overjoyed with the reaction, and as you say, our hope is that people will come to us wanting to work with us, that were inspired because of Unleashed.
I think there definitely will be. Like I said, I was chatting a little bit with some of the folks down the road, and in the collectibles department, and that's another area of business that you guys are in, the collectible. As we see, you have quite a collection of collectibles in the office here, but it's really cool, I think, how you've been able to maintain that tie to Middle Earth, but you're also branching out into exciting new things. I know I've got lots of my fans love Warhammer, and so when that announcement was made, they're like, this is a match made in nerd heaven.
Please look it out.
It's
our
incredible.
collectibles from that wonderful world.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we built a relationship with those guys through them doing the Lord of the Rings
strategy battle game. Yeah.
strategy battle game. And we got to know the Perrys and many of the other wonderful folk, and they kindly invited us. We were making replicas of the props to send to them so that they had exact, accurate things to copy.
Wow.
And they kindly invited Tanya and I to go and visit their headquarters in Nottingham, and we got every door open visitation rights to every department, and that was mind-boggling. That was the level of business sophistication and the fact that they know their product so well. I mean, that sounds very obvious, but they're so consummately skilled at doing what they do and doing it to the best degree they can. And then we went back again, and the Perrys have come and visited us many times, as has a number of people from Games Workshop. So it's actually been a very lovely relationship. And to think that 25 years after we first met them, that we are now making collectibles from their world. And we've got, so as that online video that we shot shows, we have got some serious fans here.
Jules, looked like he was in heaven there.
Daniel Cockersill is the heart of the sculpting of those characters.
Cool.
There's a number of sculptors, but Daniel used to do, I think, Forge World Collectibles or whatever, and has had a long history doing those type of sculptures, some of them at tiny 70-second scale, etc. And so Dan has just embraced it with such a warmth and enthusiasm.
Oh, that's fun.
So I've just seen the latest one that we're doing as a maquette that he's sculpted. Damn, it's so good.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, we saw some confidential things down there, and it was blowing my mind, some of the things you guys are working on.
Yes.
I'm curious. So I've kind of just started diving into collecting collectibles. I actually just started with the Argonath statue because that was the moment in the films where I knew I was addicted to Tolkien, because I just had to find out the history of the Argonath. So that's been my first one. I'm curious which one, of all the collectibles you guys have done, what are some of your favorites?
You make it hard. I speak to my own collection in this room, first of all. There's only a couple of collectibles in this room that are...
I thought you were going to end with just a couple. I was like, that's more than a couple.
That are ones we've made.
Oh, okay.
Because they're in here because there's nowhere else to store them. There's 260 collectibles in this office. I share the office with my assistant, Ree. We used to have 6 people in here, including my wife, Tanya. But we needed more brainstorming space in my office, so they got moved on, and Collectibles took over.
Yeah.
I used to have this whole collection at home. We live in a pretty squidgy house we bought on Meet the Feebles, so we're still in the same home, and every one of these collectibles. But when Tanya got pregnant, I was like, no way am I letting a child loose on these. They're more precious. But interestingly, our first child, Sam, would never have damaged them. Now our daughter, who's so curious, may have wreaked havoc. But I collect pieces that I find beautiful from a sculptural perspective. They don't necessarily even have to be from a movie or an IP that I love. I'm not collecting them from a fan point of view always. There are certain collectibles in here that I'm a huge fan. I've got a Vampirella up there that I've just glanced, and done by a New Zealand sculptor. I was a huge fan of Vampirella. Judge Dredd, who I was also a massive fan of, and maybe I would never have bought those collectibles if I hadn't been such a fan. But I am mostly collecting pieces because I love the sculpture, and I've got into collecting Chinese garage kits in a very big way. That's actually a Japanese garage kit. That's by the very famous Takia. He's probably the most famous collectible sculptor on the planet. But these are Chinese garage kits, and they're so beautiful. And then people send me pieces. These were a Christmas present from the most extraordinary sculptor, a gentleman called Tomek from Poland, who I've been corresponding with for years, and only just last year met in person when he came and visited me when I was doing a lecture in Barcelona. But I love these. I love having them behind me when I'm sitting at this table.
Yeah.
So getting to actually make our own collectibles has been an odyssey for me. You know, I call the collectibles business prospecting for gold. You've got to buy your prospect, the license. You've got to buy your donkey. You've got to ride up into the mountains. You've got to get your pen. You've got to climb into the river, pull up your trousers, stand in the cold river for hours at end. And there may not be any gold, right? Because some licenses may not fly, people may not embrace them, they may not have the necessary tail that makes it commercially viable. And I wish it wasn't just about, I wish it wasn't dependent on commercial viability. I'd love it if we could almost run our collectibles business as a hobby, because I just love making them so much. I love the fact that it's as close as we can get to doing fine art, sculpture, but at a price that most people could afford if they wanted to collect them.
That's
Reese,
well, we've got it.
My assistant is going like this to wrap it up. I'll answer your question quickly. The more dynamic and the more classical the sculpture. So some of my favorites are very simple single piece figures that have an extraordinary dynamic to them. There's a Lara Croft sculpture just behind Sean. I'm not a massive Lara Croft fan by any means, but I love the dynamic in that piece where her foot is mounted off the flank of the dinosaur who's then crawling around the log, and the whole thing is captured in a suspended moment of action and power and so on.
It's got a motion to it.
And that's what I'm really, when I'm art directing the pieces, that's what I'm trying to seek in some pieces. Other ones want to have a certain level of quiet and solemnness to them. So, you know, and it's so dependent on the sculptor as well. I love the fact that we've got a little business down the road that is allowing people who have a desire to sculpt to become exceptional sculptors that are training every day in the process of making these beautiful objects. And then the fact that people are collecting them is incredibly exciting. I'm a fanatical collector, as you can see, from the collection in this room around us. And in turn, it's so lovely. You're getting antsy.
Well, I don't want to make Ree mad on like my first day at WETA, you know?
No. Well, that's me done by the looks of it. And very nice.
Yes. Well, we didn't even get to, you know, things like Te Papa, all the amazing stuff you did at the museum. In short, guys, if you come to New Zealand, definitely you got to check out the tour here at WETA. You've got to check out Wētā Workshop Unleashed. It is an incredible experience. Go check out Te Papa because the work that you guys have done there.
The Gallipoli exhibition would be lovely to go and look at.
Well, Richard, I won't keep you any longer or else Ree's going to come after me. But thank you so much,
as always,
for joining us.
And hello, everyone. I will look forward to seeing most of you at Comic-Con again this year, as we're all back up and running again. Thanks to Sean for filming this, and Matt, your ongoing interest in our company and your willingness to come down here and film us and talk to us is very special. So,
well, it's very special for me. I've been a huge fan of you guys ever since I saw those Lord of the Rings films, and you know, every movie and project that you guys do helps transport me.
Let's clink swords.
Oh, there we go.
Okay, cheers to you.
There we go. All right, guys. Well, stay tuned. We've got more coming from New Zealand. Special thanks to Richard Taylor again. And we'll see you next time.
And we'll see if Lottie wants to say. And this is
Lottie.
My little dog Lottie, who got shaved yesterday. She says bye too.
She was very well behaved that whole time. That's amazing.
Yeah, she's amazing.